we are working with Gwalior Municipal Corporation on running the incubation cell. So we thought that idea that why can't we have the certain kind of this initiative across the India, and with this concept we have started this. So request Aditi to please take over. Thank you.
I would like to call on Dice Mr. Dr. T.G. Sikaram. Mr. Dr. Ram Huddar. Dr. Sriparna Barua. Mr. D.P. Tiwari. Good morning everyone. I am Aditi Gupta, working as a project manager in All India Institute of Local Self-Government and handling Gwalior Incubation Project. So thanks for being here in the global launch of Regional and Urban Business Incubation Cell named RUBIC. The spurt of startup initiatives that has been witnessed in India during the current decade has also brought to the fore the critical role of incubation and the incubators per se in providing support services and technical assistance in expanding the production possibility frontiers of the startups. Today, ALSG is already running an incubation center with the help of Gwalior Smart City Limited, where we are providing mentorship, networking, financial assistance, co-working space, and other facilities to the startups. To further accelerate the process, a team of organizations have come together to provide a platform for promoting and accelerating startups through a regional and urban business incubation cell steered and anchored by the ALSG and physically located at the CRT IIT Guwahati, NIRI and IIE. Rubik will draw upon the learnings of all its partners. Each member institution has been closely engaged in developing, piloting and sharpening technologies for startups, tried in their own ways novel businesses processes for penetrating the markets for their respective goods services and have a mix of both successes and failure. Rubik seeks to rapidly catalyze the entrepreneurship process through physical arrangements in terms of mentoring, awards, etc. and virtual support. So, I would like to call Mr. Rajiv Agrawal, Director General ALSG, for welcome remarks.
Professor Director IIT, Ms. Barua, Mr. Tiwari, and Mr. Huddar. I won't really take much time because we are already running out of time. The earlier two sessions have taken much more time than what we anticipated. I'll only say that we welcome and we are really honored that organizations like IIT Guwahati, Indian Institute of Entrepreneurship, National Environmental Engineering Research Institutes have joined hands with us in promoting this idea that entrepreneurship and propagation of new technology should be taken up together. As has been mentioned, we have already started an incubation center in Gwalior, and we are hoping, and probably some 4 more incubation centers are in the pipeline. And I'll only say that you are all welcome, and continue with that. I really don't want to take any more time than that.
I would like to call Dr. T.G. Sitharam, Director IIT Guwahati, to share few words.
Good afternoon to all of you, distinguished people on the dais and off the dais. We are very happy as a partner to this RUBIC. And particularly, in IIT Guwahati, we encourage our students to be an entrepreneur. and we tell them that they should be a job givers, not a job seekers. So we have at 3 different levels the entrepreneurship development in our institute. One is at the first and second year, where through their technical clubs, we encourage them, whether it is robotic club, modeling club, or even culture clubs. Okay, our students and even event management, the kind of things what they do is amazing. For me, I am actually from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, for the last 27 years, and I moved only about 8 months back to the IIT Guwahati as the director. And it was really an eye-opening what our students of IITs are doing. That's why I think IIT is a brand all over the world, because they are really, really good. So what I would like to say is, today, I would like to briefly tell you, we are, let's go back to the previous slide. Yeah, we are celebrating our Silver Jubilee, that means 25th year. We started in 1994. IIT Guwahati, Guwahati, how many of you know where is Guwahati? Guwahati, I think many of you know. It was in the northeast, in the center, and on the banks of Brahmaputra. When we started, our institute actually started with a lot of agitation of the students in 84. It's a student movement who requested an IIT in that region, which 1984 they signed with the Honorable Prime Minister of India, that was Rajiv Gandhi, but it took almost 10 years to fructify. 1994, our institute started on the banks of Brahmaputra, actually started from Pan Bazaar in Guwahati, Institute of Engineers building. Okay, and we moved sometime in 97, 98 to the our campus, which is in the north part of the city. That means we have to cross the river. So we are not on the Guwahati city side. We are on the northern side of the city after crossing Brahmaputra. So some of the beautiful pictures. Today the IIT Guwahati is one of the best campuses. At least I can say, because I'm an outsider, I can always say it's one of the best campuses of IITs, among all IITs. This is one of the best 700 acres we have. We receive more than 250 to 300 birds across the world. So we have brought out a beautiful book on birds of IIT Guwahati. And we also brought out a beautiful book on flora of IIT Guwahati. So anyway, coming to today's topic, just take you through quickly. Our mantra is academy industry interaction, so we encourage our students to do innovation, incubation and translation of all the technologies to the growth of India. So we are also under Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, we have adopted 10 villages. We work with villages as well as our students get immersed in village activities. So there are a lot of actually learning from each other. So next slide. So we have a lot of strengths. I will not actually try to read this to all the audience because I understand there is a mix of people here. So maybe I'll just take you to the rural technologies. I must slide, just take next slide please. Keep going because I think next slide. Yeah, wait. I would like to say IIT Guwahati is the 6th member of IIT fraternity. All of you know that we had IIT Kharagpur is the one early started in 1960. After that immediately we started Bombay, Delhi, Kanpur and Chennai. And these 4 were actually supported from different governments like Germany, Russia, Britain and America. However, IIT Guwahati is the first, that one, 6th IIT, which grew completely with indigenous efforts of India, Indian government. IIT Guwahati perhaps built the confidence in Indian academia that one institute or university can become frontline institute all by itself at a location that was not well connected by air with the rest of the country. Today, Guwahati is very well connected. I welcome all of you to come to Guwahati because today more than 80 flights come to Guwahati city and there are direct connections from Bangalore and Chennai, Hyderabad as well as Mumbai and Delhi. There are 18 flights every day. Okay, so it's a very well connected. So I invite all of you to be there. And IIT Guwahati can be considered as a role model because you can see the kind of activities our young people who are faculty are doing. There are more than 450 faculty with 11 departments and 5 interdisciplinary centers. And we have very focused areas on water and all high technologies. Okay, I will not take much of your time. And today, IIT Guwahati is one of the top-ranked institutes in the country. And we are #1 in the Northeast, as well as in India, #6. And as per the NIRF ranking, even among all the universities in India, we are #9. So we are very proud that this could be achieved with the faculty and students and researcher support in India. And we would like to grow to almost 12,000 students with almost 600 faculty in 5 years of time. Next please. So there are different strengths. So skip this. Very, very high-tech areas. I will not actually dwell too much on this, but there are actually all application-oriented. Please remember, whether it is healthcare or electronics, communication, and IoT, all areas of faculty and students are working. Next slide, please. This is healthcare. There are very, very innovative, products have been developed. So, and also whether it is underwater, recently Government of India has recognized as underwater exploration research areas. Here you start, the previous one. So, as I told you, in the entrepreneurship, we have 3 different levels. First, at the level of students, first and second year, and then we have Technology Incubation Center, where we have graduated more than 10 companies, and there are actually 25 companies which are actually started by students and faculty at Technology Incubation Center. And then we have also got recently what is called as a research park funded by MHRD, wherein we co-locate industries in the campus. So we have already 15 companies signed up, and we are going to have 50 companies in our campus within a year to come. And our building is going to be get ready by 21st January. The new building of research park would be ready on the similar lines as IIT Madras. Okay, if some of you have not seen, you should look at the kind of growth what IIT Madras has done in the research park, and IIT Guwahati will be leading in that area. And we had recently Guwahati Startup Summit in 2018, and Regional Northeast and Sikkim Partner of National Entrepreneurship Awards. We have received many awards. Our students and faculty have received many awards in both 2018 and 2019. Next slide. So we are also looking at New Generation Innovation Entrepreneurship Development Center, sponsored by NSTEB DST at IIT Guwahati, and with several events have been organized under this, and also new facilities have been created to actually, we wanted to actually develop the 3D printing on smaller items and give it to the local rural masses, so that they can replicate that very easily without looking at their own intellectuals. Because today all these can be captured very exceedingly well. Next slide, please. So we have a very serious activity on community outreach, particularly our students and faculty through our ROTAG. I'll take you, and also IIT Guwahati in that area has mentored many institutions also. So we are institution builders as well. So we were IIT Bhagalpur was built by IIT Guwahati, and then we were mentors for IIT Patna for 3 years. All our faculty went to Patna and started teaching engineering courses. Please understand. So it's a big task. Patna is very far away from us, but still we were able to mentor that as an young institution. See, we are not an institution like Institute of Science, which is 110 years old. Okay, we are only 25 years old. Next slide, please. So under Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, a lot of village activities are happening at IIT Guwahati, and I would like to welcome all of you to visit us at IIT Guwahati. Next slide, please. So institute achievements, I would like to highlight very quickly that you can see, as I told you, NIRF ranking, we are continuously increasing. Even in the global ranking, we are very happy to say we are in the top 250, but we would like to reach top 100 in the world universities in 2-3 years to come, and it is possible. So right now only from India there are 3 institutes, so I hope to see IIT Guwahati will be in years to come, maybe a couple of years to come, because we have now increased our ranking in the world ranking at 230. Next. So, as I told you, IIT Guwahati ranks 3rd in 2020 among the IITs and 9th overall in the leading science and research institution in India in terms of research citation. So, that means our actually marks are coming down because of international faculty presence and international students presence, but otherwise our faculty's publication and contribution to society is quite high. So vision, I'll skip this. I will close in 1 or 2 slides. And this is the vision in all, whether number of students, patents, publications, startups, significant projects, and international collaboration, strength in all these areas we are working. So it's like an all-round development for an institution of this nature. So we would like to also extend into medical school as well as an architecture school soon and a management school. So in that we bring in multidisciplinary activities on the same institute platform. So that will give us a much more wider spectrum. And I would like to highlight here, we have a humanities department in IIT, so don't think that University of Technology is a technology institute. We have a humanity department where 40 faculty are working in humanities, whether it is history of India or the social engagement. All faculty are already there in IIT Guwahati. We teach our students.
You will be producing doctors also.
Yes, and PhD also, and MA in developmental science, sociology is also going on. So we are not just a IIT MTech and BTech students, we are also MA developmental studies and many other courses are there. Please have a look at IIT Guwahati's website, iitj.ac.in. Excellent. That's it. I think I will close here. Thank you very much. And Rubik is an excellent initiative, and I welcome our participation into Rubik. And as I told yesterday, some of you may not have been there in my session. India is, even though this is an event of Asian City Summit, I would like to say India is still village centric. We have more than 6 lakh villages, and our innovations have to happen in villages to keep the villagers in villages. Otherwise, we will have a serious problem. So how do we do this? This has to be around first water. If you keep a mission on water should be taken up so that we innovate even revenue generating models in around water. So water should be, because even our body has 70% water. Similarly, water is essential. If you look at your SDG goals, all the goals, all the 17 touches water. Even though 6 is the water and sanitation, but if you look at carefully, every goal needs water. So I think if you can create innovation and entrepreneurship around water, and our villages will prosper, because we have forgotten, Indian civilization was very aware of this. Please, ladies and gentlemen, understand this. Indian civilization knew water is a very critical, so they used to treat that water as a god. Okay, every river and every stream was a god. But today, we have forgotten that, so we need to encourage again all our people to do look at water as a very critical thing and generate, whether it is Udaipur, if you see the city of Udaipur of lake, or Bhopal, I learned that Bhopal is also a city of lakes. Like that, we need to again recreate our lakes and ponds and tanks and keres and kuntes, whatever you call in the local languages, and do that. And I hope that this Rubik will be that kind of initiative wherein we can look at newer entrepreneurship, not only technology, and very local technologies are also being adopted. Thank you so much.
Sitaram, I'll now invite Mr. Uddar to say a few words.
Good morning, good afternoon to one and all. Distinguished dignitaries on the dais, as well as off the dais, my friends and colleagues. Well, I'm delighted to represent CSI NEERI, an esteemed organization of Government of India here. But before I do that, I'll give you a brief history about NEERI as to how NEERI has come about it. In fact, it's a very interesting story. Somewhere late in 1950s, there was an epidemic of jaundice in Delhi. And that paved the way for the thinkers that time to think about Public Health Engineering Research Institute. And that's how NEERI came about. Initially, it was called CPHERI, Central Public Health Engineering Research Institute. And thereafter, somewhere in 1974, when Srimati Indira Gandhi, the then Prime Minister of India, and also the President of CSIR, visited NEERI, she thought that NEERI should expand its horizon. CPHERI should expand its horizon from just being public health engineering to a National Environmental Engineering Research Institute. I think environment during 1970s were not really very talked about subject. But our Prime Minister at that time thought that environment is going to be very, very important in years to come. And that's how the NEERI came to be. We are delighted that we are going to be a part of Rubrik because incubation of technology is much needed these days. I have a long message from our director, which I think if I read, you will get a little bored. So it's better that I just take it as an extempo of NEERI. I'll give you a brief about NEERI. National Environmental Engineering does the research, basic research in science involving all the environmental aspects. Let it be water, air, earth, genomics. You say it and we have it. For a number of years, these researches have been going on, and NEERI has done excellent work in providing their services to the judiciary, to the government, to the industry. Reliance was one of the partners with us for a number of years, where now Reliance is a big group in India, but it started getting their scientific and industrial problem resolved by NEERI. And that's how the NEERI has come about. It has got a pan-India presence. It has 5 laboratories across the country, one in Mumbai, one in Delhi, one in Calcutta, Hyderabad and Chennai. So we have our outreach across the nation, whereby the problems of industry, problems of societies, problems of any kind that has to deal with the environment can approach us. We will be delighted to help you. NEERI recently has come out with a lot of technologies that are good for water. For instance, there's a technology called Renew. It's basically sewage treatment plant. As you know that earlier sewage treatment plants had to be built on a land. What we have done in Renew is we have put the plant itself into the drains. So thereby the drain continues to flow. At the same time, it clears the water. It treats the water. And then the water when goes to the river, it has very less of pollutants, and thereby the rivers can be cleaner. So these are the innovative technologies that NEERI has come about, and we are going forward with it. I am very happy that AILSG has taken this initiative to have an incubation center at NEERI. Director NEERI is very happy. Unfortunately, he had a meeting in Delhi, so he could not attend. So I am playing proxy to my director. I've been associated with NEERI as a Senior Principal Technical Officer for the last 18 years. Of course, I super innovated 2 years back, and now I am back to NEERI as a consultant because NEERI doesn't want to let go of me. I don't know why, but that's how things are. I think we are running late, so Mr. Agarwal is little pressurized. I won't take much of your time. I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity of telling you briefly about NEERI, and we are very happy to be a part of it. Thank you very much, one and all.
Mr. Tiwari to say a few words. Mr. Tiwari is a retired IAS officer from Madhya Pradesh cadre, and he is looking after our activities in the state of Madhya Pradesh. And because our first incubation center is located in Gwalior, for which he has contributed quite a lot, so he will be talking about.
As Mr. Sitaram, he has narrated very much about the IIT Guwahati. I am lucky. I visited Guwahati 2 years back, so I know what you say. I can say it is much more than that what you have said here. So, thank you, sir. Mr. Ram, here is Ram, here is Sitaram. Mr. Ram, he has mentioned about the NEERI. Everybody knows NEERI is a research institute, very famous all over the country, not over the country, but I think globally. So, I am here as a former administrator. Now I have joined AILSG. So naturally from Madhya Pradesh, I have worked as Union Commissioner Bhopal and Collector Raipur. So I am much associated with Madhya Pradesh. You know, in Madhya Pradesh there are 378 local bodies and 7 out of 14 अपने की municipal corporation, there are 7 smart cities. So Gwalior is one of them. So now we propose to have a अपना incubation center in all the अपने की 7 smart cities, and we are अपना fortunate enough. AILSC have started incubation center in Gwalior. Very soon, perhaps in अपना next few months, we are अपने की launching our new incubation center in Bilaspur. It is already in pipeline. So we have got अपना excellent results in Gwalior. So more than अपने की 200 अपना की person they have come with new ideas, like अपना vegetable वाला, they have अपने की made अपने की new app for vegetable अपने की selling, like पंचर, साइकिल पंचर बनाने वाला, उसको भी अपने की उसने give a new idea with how to prepare the अपने की tires and etc. So very new ideas. So I can say अपने the man is born intelligent. Everybody has got some talent. If we get the अपने की opportunity, we provide the अपना assistance, they can अपने की come up at a very very high level. Sir, I can quote the name of you must have seen Ram Bhadracharya ji. आपका चैनल में आते हैं. He is blind, he cannot see, but he is vice chancellor of अपने की university located in Chitrakoot. We have अपने की heard the name of music director Ravindra Jain, blind, but अपने की we know all over the country how अपना ये got the talent. So this incubation center, today we are launching this global launch of regional and urban business incubation cell with the अपने की support of अपने की NIRI and Guwahati. So sir, I can say this will be not a rubric, but it will be a magic in the अपने की coming days. No doubt it will be a magic. So I am not to say so much because Mr. Sitaram, he has already told so many अपना things. Other panelists, they will also speak about this अपने की incubation center. So in few words only I will say that whatever अपना responsibility given to me by AILSC, I will do my best in all our local bodies, not only to Gwalior, limited to Gwalior, but all over the MP and Chhattisgarh. Chhattisgarh I say because I have been a collector of Raipur, Raigarh, so I am also associated there in Chhattisgarh. So you have given me the responsibility for both the states, and surely apna I will handle that responsibility very well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Tiwari. Launched this regional and urban business incubation channel in All India Institute of Local Self-Government with collaboration with the eminent institution like IIT Guwahati. I am actually very familiar with the Northeast. I was just mentioning to Dr. Barua that from 2003 to 2008, I was Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Home Affairs in charge of Northeast, and I had the opportunity to visit Guwahati. I practically used to visit Guwahati every month, and I have dealt with many of these militant organizations who are now not so militant. So we are really very happy. In fact, some of my very close friends, kids have also studied in Guwahati, IIT Guwahati, and they are now very successful. Similarly, NIRI, everybody knows, and we are very happy that they have agreed to collaborate with us. Similarly, Indian Institute of Entrepreneurship, Dr. Barua is there. I have taken her permission that we'll invite her to speak as a panelist, and that time briefly she will speak about our institute also because of the paucity of time. So here this session I declare as closed, and panelists may be invited for study panel. There's one more way.
In charge Center for Innovation, Incubation and Entrepreneurship with Spelani, Mr. A.K. Jain, Director Center of Sustainable Governance, AILSG, Siddharth Singh, Assistant Professor, IIT Guwahati, Rohan Sharma, Head TIS, AESDII, Mumbai, Mr. Ayush Lohia, CEO of Lohia Auto Industries, and Dr. Sriparna Barua, Head CRT, Center for Industrial Extension, II. Dr. Nikhil Raj, Program Head, Incubation Cell and Girl Power, AILSG, who would introduce you with all the panelists on DICE. Also, I would like to invite our Technical Director, Pashim Tiwari, on DICE.
Good afternoon and welcome all the esteemed panelists. Let me take this quick opportunity to introduce to you Dr. Mr. Tiwari, who is the President Incubation Master. He is a technology business leader with 15 years of experience in leadership roles. Has also worked with companies like NSE, Amazon, Franklin Templeton, etc. Welcome, warm welcome. We have Mr. Ayush Lohia, who is not here. He has already been. Okay. Rohan is an old friend. So Rohan, warm welcome. We used to work together at the Tata Consulting Institute and TIS. And Rohan has been involved in the business of development sector and social enterprise business incubation. Dr. Mridula Goyal, she happens to be a newfound neighbor where we stay in Delhi. Dr. Mridula Goyal is associated with BITS Goa, an incubator set up on campus in 2017, and has been working in the area of startups in the sector of health and environment. Mr. Ajit Jain, a warm welcome to you. You have been a seasoned bureaucrat, and we look forward to hearing from you during the panel some of your expertise and experience, what we can learn as far as taking Rubik forward, and also in the business perspective. Dr. Suparna Barua, a warm welcome to you. And Dr. Barua is from the Indian Institute of Entrepreneurship and is engaged heavily into capacity building for the startups and business incubation. Warm welcome once again. Let me just open up the session. Rubik, as the name says, regional and business incubation center is a collaborative effort. And with this collaborative effort, we are trying to create an institutional platform to do multiple things. With this global launch, we also want to, the objective of this session is to learn from this esteemed panelists and the guests here, and also to carve out an agenda for Rubik in the immediate term, medium term, and the long term, at least in the next 45 minutes. Mr. Jain, let me just open up with you. I mean, we have, there is a, few years back, 3-4 years, the Prime Minister launched up the Startup India engagement. But something is, the big bang is missing somewhere. And that's why, the need for this kind of a business incubation is come. From your experience, from your engagement at various levels in the Government of India and the state government, where do you think that how is the macro landscape there to support this kind of a self-entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship promotion and the role for business incubation? 2 minutes, sir, and then we'll go around the table.
I've become the opening batsman now, so to say. See, the time is short, so I'll come to the point straight away. The biggest challenge in government or in governance is one of convergence. And within the same department, across desks, there is hardly any convergence or coordination. Now, my proposal, the way I look at it, is that we have to look at innovations and incubation business in the context of various policy and programs. Now, we have a smart city program going, for which there are certain objectives which have been laid out. We have, in the rural area, for example, Honorable Prime Minister declared Jal Jeevan Mission, which is a very ambitious program. We have Swachh Bharat Mission, we have livelihood missions, we have health missions, and so on and so forth. Now, my proposal is that, or I personally feel that for each of these programs or mission, we should look at the areas where innovations are required. If you read the documents of all these missions, everywhere there is the mention that they want innovations. I'm kind of concerned with I'm connected with the Jal Jeevan Mission as part of the Government of India's task force. And one of the major areas given to us is to identify areas where we can innovate and call innovators, call innovative technologies. As Mr. Agarwal said, some could be very high-tech, other could not be very high-tech, but very, very practical solutions. So that's the first point, is that every program should kind of delineate this as a component to identify innovators in that particular, identify areas where innovations are required and identify innovators where some work is happening. Now, one of the problems in the government is that we don't know who are the innovators. Recently in Telangana, we came to know about a simple innovation of a ferrule cum flow control wall. Now, this is a technology, it's a small equipment, say about just 4 inch, but then it goes a long way in equitable distribution of water in the city. So this is an example. So this is one point which I like to underline, and for this, to my mind, your incubation center can also play a role in terms of interface with the policy or policy advocacy.
Thank you. Thank you. Sripadna, may I request you from the perspective of an institution which has been in the business of capacity building for the entrepreneurs, where do you see the policy, current policy perspective, and how can it be made more enabling?
Okay, just what we do as an institute, so just to put the perspective right, as an institute of entrepreneurship, we've been in existence for about 25 years now. And as a national institute, we have been in the business of entrepreneurship more than that, because initially we were a branch institute of the National Institute of Small Industries Extension Training. So our perspective, as you have very correctly said, was more on capacity building. But last 12 years, 10 to 12 years, we have been implementing a large number of projects. And these are rural projects, cluster projects, and where we've been doing a lot of hand-holding in terms of both backward integration and forward integration. And that's where enterprises on a group mode, on an individual mode has started happening. And these type of hand-holding which we've been doing, and as my previous speaker said, there's so many policies, and there's there's an opportunity for a lot of convergence to happen. From our institute's perspective, we have made a lot of attempt for convergence. In fact, any project that we implement, we try to do a lot of convergence. It is a time-taking task, and it really builds, stretches our efforts to a large extent. But results have really been very, very effective. And from the experience of the last 10 to 12 years, what we can say is we understand where exactly there is need for innovation, which are the pockets in which there is a need for appropriate innovative technology which is required, and which can make a lot of change to the sort of landscape in the entire ecosystem of specific pockets where we work. So from that perspective, I feel there is a lot of scope for a concept like Rubik to actually come in, instead of us only working, because we are more on the capacity building, we are more on doing convergence. If at the same time there are organizations, various stakeholders which can come and join hands, our effort becomes simpler and the results and the reach would be much, much higher. From that perspective, I think there's a lot of scope. And specifically, if I could say that although we are a national institute, our focus is Northeast, because that was a mandate given to us. So immediately, if I can think about that, we could even immediately say about these are some of the pockets where we could immediately start intervening. So from that perspective, we really look forward. I think a lot can happen. Thank you.
Mr. Tiwari, you worked with some of the big startups in the world, and the agencies that have disrupted the technology. Amazon is one of those, and you are kind of an entrepreneur in your own right. Can you tell us, how favorable is the current environment from a policy perspective for technology startups?
I would like to start with a couple of missing things here. One is the accountability. I have seen many incubation centers coming up these days, because we mostly work with tier 2 and tier 3 cities. A lot of colleges and universities, they have the incubation centers, but there's no accountability. And second one was the inclusiveness. If you look at the data, most of the funded startups or the tech startups are fintech. Like 96% of fundings that go to tier 1 city, mostly into fintech. I mean, the startups where the real India comes from, the rural sector, the ag tax, the health tax, and the startups in education sectors, except Byju's. So I would like to add a point here about the accountability. The incubation centers, government should come up with some policy or some uniformity in managing these incubation center to make sure that the benefits are actually given to to all the entrepreneurs, because most of the entrepreneurs in our country, they feel left behind. We have so many incubation centers. We are third when we talk about the numbers after US and China. We are number 3 in terms of having the incubation centers and accelerators. But the problem is number of incubation centers is not a problem in India. The problem is inclusiveness and the reach. Penetration is required to ensure that the benefits, the mentorship, the acceleration services are reaching to tier 2, tier 3, and for that matter even the villages. That's also very much needed. Now talk about the tech disruption. Yes, I'm sure, because we have seen many tech startups disrupting the way we have been doing business, the way we have been dealing with things. And I really thank companies like Microsoft, Google, and Amazon, because you guys won't believe that they have their presence in all over Madhya Pradesh, all over Haryana, all over Gujarat, and they have a lot of good acceleration programs. They offer like 5,000 credit dollar to each startup. They don't distinguish whether you are from a particular city or from a particular incubation center. So these big tech giants are helping tech startups big time, and I look forward to see their support in future as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you touched upon two things, and the other about the funds. So let me just trigger something from Mridula. Is that you started something about 2-3 years back as an incubator at Blitzcore. What has been your experience in terms of addressing one of these issues? You want some water? Sorry.
Yeah, hi. First of all, happy to be invited on part of BITS Pilani, the Goa campus. We started the process of incubation in 2013 actually. And with that I can touch on the fact that there are multiple, and we were talking about convergence. So I'll start from there. There are multiple government bodies which are promoting incubation across the country, right from the Atal Innovation Mission to the DST, the DBT, and the MATI. So there are many schemes, and as a result, as already pointed out, there is no dearth of incubators across the country. But personally, I don't think it is about getting funding for the incubators. As a practitioner and having kind of set up this entire incubation in campus and watching it grow from 2013, and now currently from 2017, our incubator is called BioNest, and it focuses on health and environment related innovations and technologies specifically. The biggest challenge I have seen is the lack of startups to be incubated. So when you talk about accountability and inclusiveness, can you just place the onus on the side of the incubator not trying to do it? I don't think so. I think it is more that you are trying to reach out, but you are not having the startups enough who can be supported. That is where the real struggle is. And I have been all over the country in various incubator events, and that is the challenge. Whenever we joke about it, then I say like, just give me some incubatees. So they said that's all what we need. So everyone needs that. So that is a key thing. And herein I would just divert a tiny bit because of the expansion of Rubik, regional and urban incubation cell, and I wanted to say that perhaps rural and urban business incubation cell, it kind of occurred to me when I looked at it, for the simple reason that a lot of incubators have been set up in academic institutions in our country. Majority of the funding is going to the IITs or the BITS, for example, as so on. So the youngsters who are the brilliant minds who can create the innovations as we see, which is why you give them funding there, are there, no doubt, they can create the innovations. There is a big gap that they are away from the reality. So which is why the real problems are perceived by people who live in the real world and away from these engineering and such brilliant minds who have grown up to be just, focused on one kind of line. So until you kind of show them the stark reality, how will they come out with those innovations which will solve the real problems? So I will come back and move on.
I think these are very useful along with all the partners, is that we have some clear-cut homework aside. One is the whole issue of identification of the startups, identification of the themes and the areas, and also the mentorship that you just mentioned about. Rohan, you have been working in the area of the development sector, and that is about, I go back to the whole issue of inclusivity, right? The last 5 years, 6 years have seen the emergence of when the CSR Act was passed. There is a horde of, clamor for reaching out the CSR funds, right? And half of the time these are being done in the backyards of these companies, right? How can we, based upon your experience that you have incubated something for the social enterprises sector, where can we draw, from your learnings for the business incubation cell, the Rubik thing that we are trying to do, so that we also include the development sector and the social enterprise. Thanks too much,
Nikhil, for that. At the outset, thank you very much. And my compliments to AILSG for actually coming up with this incubation cell, which I think is very, very important. I fully agree with my co-panelists that instead of regional, we can also have rural, because I think that is where much of India lies. So I think that would be a very inclusive kind of business cell, rural and urban. But just to start off with, I think I'll talk of a model that I have developed, and that could be an operational strategy for this cell that we're talking about. I have actually created a kind of development sector advisory or a management consulting center at TIS, which is a public university, and all of you who are, in public institutions agree that it's really difficult, to actually have any kind of innovation. But I think, having started that has had its share of challenges, because, public institutions are too rigid and it's very difficult, but I have been able to do it, and I have actually been able to raise unprecedented funds for the institution. But that's not what is important. I think broadly I'll talk of the 3LCD model, and in that I'll talk of 3 Ls, 3 Cs and 3 Ds, and I think that could be a broad guiding framework for this Rubik. So what am I talking in the 3 Ls? I'm talking about a focus on least, lost and last. Okay? So basically what I'm saying is that, can this cell or any kind of an institutional architecture where we're trying to actually address this issue, can we talk of least in the sense that, can we talk of thematic areas which receive least support from the government, from corporates, from whoever, policymakers? So, stuff like, are we talking of elderly? Are we talking of business enterprises that are talking, and like you said, ma'am, real issues? Now, I'm very happy that there's also a lot of focus on urban, because we are given to understand that poverty only exists in the villages. Let me tell you that urban poverty today is an increasing and emerging issue. So poverty also exists in urban areas, and therefore it is very essential to address issues of urban. So one is least, second is lost. So I think there are these geographic areas, which are completely lost when it comes to policy makers and their planning, and that is something that I've been a part of. So the government of India, as you know, is focusing majorly on the aspirational districts. Okay, the Niti Aayog has actually listed down 115, and way back in 2012, I actually led a research project for TIS, which was then submitted to the Ministry of Heavy Industries, and that became a policy recommendation. Whereby my whole argument was, how can corporate social responsibility funds be used in a more equitable way? Okay, otherwise the same cities are getting pumped with funding, the same sectors are getting saturated with funding, and it's not need-based. So how could we actually have a more equitable distribution of CSR funds? Because I really don't think CSR is any big deal. It's just a terminology. It will remain for now. After something, there will be a new fad coming up. But basically for me, and I think what Jen Saab was saying is very important, my work has actually been on governance and accountability. And also to put, so my work was in 2011, the Tata Institute of Social Sciences was requested by the Government of India to come up with an assessment framework for actually funding development actors. It could be social enterprises, it could be NGOs, it could be foundations. And when they came to me, they said, we want TIS to help us fund the good NGOs. I said that TIS will help you fund the bad NGOs. Now what I mean by this bad within inverted commas is basically, often the grassroots organizations are considered bad because their financial management systems are weak, they are not results based, it's very ad hoc. So in 2011, I actually developed this assessment framework, which was more of guidelines for how not-for-profit or anybody at the receiving end of any sort of funding, be it from government, be it from corporate social responsibility, be it from international aid agencies, how could they actually build in accountability, governance mechanisms, because we're talking of sustainable organizations also. Okay, so my second focus on the L is lost. Third is last. When I talk of last, I'll talk of SDG number 17, which I think is so important, and that is what we're basically talking about. And to set the context, thank you for this opportunity. Okay, so I'm talking of SDG number 17, which talks of partnerships. And today we realize that to address any social problem, given the nuances, given the complexities, we have to move towards partnerships. The 3 C's that I talk about has already been spoken: convergence, collaboration, and capacity building. And I think that is where such cells being incubated in academic institutions brings in that focus of capacity building, because there is a really strong need to build a cadre of development sector professionals. Okay, and the third D, and I'll continue with the other points later, but to set the context, data. I think data is becoming very important, and what I'm basically talking about is having evidence-based approaches to decision making. The second is design thinking, which I think we'll talk about. And final D is documentation and dissemination, which I think this is a fantastic forum for knowledge dissemination. Thank you.
I mean, what I can see is that, we are getting a lot of homework, and, I'm getting enriched, because once I'm preparing my own minutes and to-do list, I think we can do that. Jain Saab, one question back to you. This is the second leg of our discussion. The first was on the macro part. The second is something about the whole funding issue, because that's one thing which is very critical. You being the State Information Commissioner, and I want to start a startup. I've been looking for some potential angel investors or people who could fund my initiative. Is there any scope within the existing, information policy or the acts and regulations which can be utilized or tweaked somewhere to enable and where the business incubators could also, do a matchmaking through this information which is available for seeking potential venture capital funding? I'm just asking you to, from your experience, using the RTI or the information. Thank you, sir.
I was just thinking about water and sanitation only, but you have brought me to RTI. There is a huge scope for 2 reasons. There is a provision of proactive disclosure under the RTI Act, where all the departments, all the what you call public authorities are supposed to display their information, some very critical information, project related, budget related, expenditure related on their websites, right? I'll just give an example of Maharashtra PWD done an excellent portal, what you call evidence-based project monitoring system, where at the click of the mouse you can find out how much amount has been spent in a particular project, whether it's a culvert or whatever it is, and it is in the public domain. So I took up that study and presented in the National Forum also, where the Honorable Prime Minister was also there. So this is one area. Now many authorities do not have the capacity or maybe the wherewithal or maybe the technical competence to do it. When we say authority, not only the departments at the Delhi level or at the Goa or maybe Mumbai level, but down below at the collector or further downwards. So this is one thing where there is a scope for some, knowledge-based, information-based or maybe what ICT-based entrepreneur coming into it. The second part is we got rural kiosks. There are rural service centers, which can be the, like cyber centers or cyber cafes, can be the cafes or kiosks for taking RTI applications, providing the interface to the citizens or villagers, whatever, with the government department. So these are probably 2 areas I will look at, but there is a huge scope. The only downside is that many such entrepreneur becomes, money, what you call
money
brand seekers at times. This should not happen. And there are some cases like that.
I have been in this whole business of, mentoring the entrepreneurs. Tell me, what does it take to actually attract a venture capitalist? I mean, just, those 3 things. In terms of, does size matter? What is it, the proof of concept? Do you have to really give? Is it the scale of that proof of concept, or for how long, or the vintage of that POC before somebody can be more confident enough to gain the traction with the VCs or the angel investors? Something from your experience.
And my answer is you don't need to. First of all, the first check should come from the customer. I mean, most of the startups, when they come up with the idea, they say, okay, now I need to reach out to a VC or reach out to an angel and look for funding. That's wrong approach actually. First of all, your first check should always come from your customer. If you have a traction already, if you have a team, look for getting a check from customer. Trust me, there are plenty of VCs, not just in India, across the globe. They are looking in Indian startups. They have got hundreds of their employees, attending such events, looking for startups to get funded. So there's no scarcity of VCs or angels. The most important point is the approach, as you said, the POC. You should have a team, first of all. I mean, a single founder will not get funded in 99.9% cases. You need to have a co-founder. That's rule number one. Rule number two is going to be your product. We don't need another Ola, we don't need another Paytm or another big basket. All we need, you should look to solve a local problem or a problem. A problem must exist. When we sit in a panel and evaluate the pitch decks of a startup, so most of the time we see they're trying to build a product which is not needed in the market. So first thing is, there should be a problem which your product is trying to address. That's very important. As I said, team is very important. And third, you should look for traction. Even if you have just 5 customers or even 2 customers that are good enough for an angel to come and invest in your company. So as I said, there's no scarcity of VCs or angels. There's a lot of angels. There's only one problem I would say. I mean, most of the fundings are done in Tier 1 cities only. Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, there's no angel network. There are so-called few angel networks, but they're not regularized. I mean, they don't trust these startups because this is a very new business to them. They still, I mean, we have got angels in Tier 3 cities, but they don't really trust their startup business. So what I really, I look forward to see is maybe the structured angel network in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. That would help a startup once I have got a traction. I don't need to travel to Bangalore or Mumbai or Hyderabad to get funded. There should be investors, at least seed funding should be made available to Tier 3 startups. And thankfully in this budget, Government of India has promised a seed fund of 20,000 crore rupees to just a seed fund, which is not more than 50 lakh rupees, for a startup. That's going to be a major milestone in this sector. Thank you.
Again, as an institution, and we're also doing incubation, where do you see a lot of these disruptions are coming in the technology sector, right? At what stage does the whole need for patenting come in? Because that will be very crucial for getting the additional funding or seeking out the additional markets.
See, normally when you think about tech development, the word which automatically comes onto any flowchart would be patenting. But interestingly, I was working on studying startups in medical devices recently, and I went and spoke to a few of them. They were basically alumni from BITS, and they're working on this. So they had a very a new thing for me to say, listen to, was that actually patenting is not what they look at in the first instance. A. B, unfortunately, when you go for patenting in India, it might be putting you at more risk rather than giving you protection. That was the second real statement which came forth. So while patenting abroad is a great idea, but that's a very expensive and long journey which a startup cannot easily jump into. So many of the startups actually do not want to go to the patenting route, and therefore we should not think that that is the next logical step. So normally that is how you go, that there is an innovative research which is going on, then it should be patented, and then it should be commercialized. Perhaps you don't want to obsess too much on patenting necessarily as the only solution. It would depend on the nature of the innovator, what he likes, and the nature of the innovation, I would say. But that is not the ultimate thing that pehle patent kar lo, that's going to solve everything, and then work on it. No need, because if you're fast enough, and in a startup you have to be fast, if you're fast enough, you're going to disrupt without the patent. Don't be so few. And the other thing over here which is related is that when you're doing a startup, the more you speak about it, the better your chances of success. The more you try to be close and protecting everything, koi aur to kar hi lega. It's not, there's not that much time around. So just go ahead and do it. And I think the Indian system is more amenable to moving ahead rather than sticking with it. Okay?
Thank you. That's really useful. Doing some interviews with the budding entrepreneurs there in our Gwalior Smart City project, and one of the issues that these young talents, they were asking, can you help us get the patents? Now that is the climate that they were struggling with, and therefore my question was.
Just 30 seconds. So as Innovation Council, we are in Goa currently. They have the government initiative is there, which is called a virtual innovation register, which is a pioneering thing, and it was launched by Shri Parikar. And there, if you register your idea, because it is a government portal, it gives you like a first logged in into the application process for patenting. So without spending too much, you log in. So please check out the virtual innovation register for Goa.
A question for you. There has been a kind of a paradigm shift in the corporate sector also, the big multinationals, from the closed R&D centers that they used to have. Perhaps now they are kind of outsourcing it also and depending upon them. Do you see that, this kind of a demand for business incubation is coming during your training of these young entrepreneurs? Are they actually seeking this? Because you see, I may be wanting to outsource something, right? But is there a demand? I mean, the whole question, are there innovators? I'm taking back with these entrepreneurs during our training programs.
I would also, thank you. It's an interesting question, but I would also like to address by first answering this question by looking at why do we not have incubatees, right? My answer to that, which also answers partly to what you're trying to ask, is I think in lesser developed regions, there is a challenge of people actually coming and taking incubation support, because your funds will come in once you are capable of even expressing what you want, right? So there is a need for creating a funnel where you are actually doing a lot of capacity building for people who have that hunger, who have an idea, who have the hunger, but possibly because of the region from which they come from, or the colleges from which they come, they are not being able to express their ideas. I think that's very, very important because we are from the Institute right now in the process of having a Northeast Entrepreneurship and Startup Summit, and it's been a revelation for us. We thought that ideas would not come. We gave a form which they had to fill up. We thought maximum we'll get into 200 filled in forms. We got about more than 1,400. We had to screen, and that, the moment we said that you're going to get a grant, first 20 will get a grant of only 5 lakhs each. That entire thing that, we could get a grant, it's not pitching in front of VCs, that comes in much later. So creating incubatees actually requires a lot of hand-holding before that. Perhaps an institution like ours, perhaps Rubik could be also performing the role of creating the funnel for incubators. Then the question of answer. Then I think a lot of young people with hunger, with that zeal would come up, and also connecting them to pockets where there are opportunities. And therein comes in also the role of creating not only startups but also social entrepreneurs who are actually seeing that these are some of the problems in your areas. Can you think about solving them? So you're trying to solve problems relating to health, education, and it could be very specific also. We are aware of pockets because there are so many rural projects already available. You're aware where the problem is. So some connect like that would create, instead of, so there could be levels of incubatees also. That's what I had to say.
Levels of incubatees and some kind of a mapping of that would be an exercise.
Some grant for having a proof of concept, then comes the seed funding, angel funding. So it could be, that way for depending on the region and the type of colleges and institutions that people are coming from.
Can I add a point to
Yes.
I mean, it's also about changing the social ecosystem, because what we have seen is a student, if I say I've got a job in Amazon with a 20 lakhs package per annum, my parents will say, Chuck startup, join that job. So that's, it's not just about college, it's about the family, it's about the society. We also give priority to a job, have a safe life first, and then we can think about security, then we can talk about the innovation maybe later. So that, but the innovation comes at a young age, maybe if I am 20, if I am 22, I'll tend to be more innovative. So it's about the social ecosystem also. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, late 80s, early 90s, when I started working and studying labor economics, so there was one professor at ILO Geneva. So he had come up with this whole idea of that, there's a need and the times are changing with the labor flexibility that, you need to move from job security to income security. Perhaps that's the better way to look at it, and that could be used as a kind of a communications thing when we look at it. I want to take up one specific example from you, Mr. Jain, on the water sector, because this is an important thing. Last 3 days we have also been talking about, 2 days particularly, several sessions, panel sessions on water. Water is God, water is gold, we need to save Jal Jeevan, after department you've done that. But the question is that how open are the VCs to support such kind of a social enterprise? Because it's a kind of a natural resource, right? It's all about the management. So does it, somewhere converge towards more on the management side of innovation? And therefore, that defines a role for the innovator. Or is it more on the technology side? I just wanted to learn something from you.
I feel that when you talk of water sector, the innovation both on the technology side as well as management side are required. There is huge scope. There's also huge money also. I mean, I'm saying in a positive way. Now, take example of an urban water scenario. In the smart city context, we are talking of 24/7 schemes, which means many things. It's not only that your tap has 24 hours, but then you should have very minimum NRW, non-revenue water losses. You have to minimize that. Now, if you want to minimize that, you have to have some kind of pressure management system. Your walls or pipes should not be leaking. There are technologies or innovations which are possible in leak detection, system basically. That is one. Then, in terms of water accounting, you have to have meters. So you have to have smart meters. There's more lot of scope to kind of innovate these meters. Otherwise, meters don't work for too long. They get, because of sedimentation, they stop functioning. So innovations are required over there as well. Similarly, on the operational side, right now, in Jal Jeevan Mission, again, I'll have to mention the name, the government is going to cover all villages in the country, for the length and breadth of the country in 4 or 5 years. Now, where will the skilled worker come from? And when you talk of rural areas, there's also an operational cost, which people in the rural areas are not really able to afford. So you have to go for maybe mobile app-based systems to be able to operate pumps, which could be installed on sources which are pretty distant. You are bringing water from a very, very long distance, like we went to Gujarat recently, and water is coming from a distance of maybe 600 kilometers or 700 kilometers. So there's this technology. I would say it's both part of the technology as well as management system, but there is a huge scope.
That's good. And it's encouraging to know that there is. I would like now to take the whole discussion to the last section. Sorry.
What she said, I thought I'll share one very good practice which Maharashtra has introduced to bring the department or the program, the corporates, in terms of getting CSR money on one platform, and that is called an institution of village social transformation foundation, which has been created on the initiative of the ex-chief minister, and all corporates, name a corporate house, and they are as part of that, and they are contributing money after the village development plans are made to, and they pick up an area of their choice. If they want school, if they want health center, they contribute money to that. Now, what I'm saying is that that structure could be studied, and probably innovation could be added to it. That okay, you develop, you give money, but through innovation, and as part of that, you also identify and develop, incubate innovators. So I think that would be good.
That's really useful. So mention as well. So when we say regional, it is a kind of a more comprehensive, all-embracing phrase. There's one thing which is in the whole business of Mr. Tiwari, this question I would like to point it to you, is in the social enterprise sector. And Rohan, your ears too, is where do you see the scope of, where we're talking about development impact bonds. So if I'm able to produce some kind of a POC, proof of concept, and if I issue some development impact bonds, is there going to gain some traction from the VCs in the social enterprise sector?
Let's
government needs to come in. I mean, I think government has also started a couple of programs. One is Raftar, if you know that Raftar scheme. So where the POC, the funding is given by government and the funding is good enough. The first amount is 5 lakhs, second is 25 lakhs, third is 75 lakhs. So that way, I mean, if you have got a good idea in AgTech or because social enterprise generally do not attract a lot of VCs, that is a reality because they are into the business of making money. They don't really care about the society and because their CSR stuff is taking care of that. The core business shouldn't even worry about the society per se. So government has to come in and because there's no VCs who are going to come and maybe interest in your startup. So, but schemes like Raftar, schemes like promoting biotech startups, I see a lot of fundings are available with government that should be utilized instead of going to VCs. If you'd like to add something to that.
Rohan?
I actually want to add a lot of things. So I think I'll just talk a little bit about, so to talk about the VCs.
We have,
I'll make it short, 2 minutes. Yeah.
2 minutes, yes.
Okay, so first is, the social enterprises, I fully agree, VCs are a little apprehensive. Social enterprises themselves, when TIS does the training and mentoring, which we have actually been doing with the American Consulate, we've been working with, the Department of Biotechnology, Department of Science and Technology, etc. We always tell them that eventually your goal is to create a self-sustainable enterprise. So business mission is first and social mission is second. And I think this is the challenge because we're talking also about, so when talking of innovation, I would like to flag two important things. When we talk of a 2x2 matrix, we're basically talking of an approach and a solution. So is it an old approach and a new solution, or is it a new approach to an old solution, right? And most often than not, we get carried away with the solution. So everybody says that, they should, we will fund somebody who is able to, address the solution. But I think what is equally important is also to talk about process innovation. And I think that is where, my work has been, where with development agencies and development institutions, we are saying it's as important to improve your governance mechanisms, your accountability mechanisms, because it's not money. And you will only be funded. You might have a great idea, but you might have absolutely no governance mechanisms and you will not be funded. So to make them game ready, to make them industry ready, I think process innovation is also very important. Secondly, I have a problem with this whole who decides what is innovation, okay? Because, and especially when you talk of social innovation, and especially when you talk of innovation that is being made by grassroots organizations, they are often dealing in not goods but services, right? It's not that you are making a better product. And who decides what is innovation? And I see a lot of, because of my work at the grassroots, a lot of innovation is happening at the community level. So this thought that only an innovator can innovate, it also has a lot of power dynamics which I think has to be kind of spoken about. To talk about Madam's point, I think you said that there is a hunger, bhook. I think problem with impact investors and angel, is also that we do not want to invest in organizations who probably are not performing well. And that is where I think, in the last 10 years, we have actually through CSR, the TIS is working with the companies where we've actually got them to engage for a long-term change, where we're saying that process innovation, process change management is as important as outcome management. Can I say one more last point?
30 seconds.
Okay, so she spoke of level of incubators, and I just want to talk about this whole challenge of how do we select the best, who to fund. So under my center, we have actually created this TIS ASDA Open, OPEN, which is Organization Project Empowerment Network, where we have incubated about 1,500 not-for-profits. All India Institute of Local Self-Government is also, by the way, one of them. And we have about 200 proposals across thematics. So these are available for funders, which have gone through a very, comprehensive due diligence, programmatic assessment, all of that. So it's not one where only a financial due diligence has been done. But also, and I think that using a methodology which is a mixed methods approach, where you're not just talking of numbers, but also talking of process level indicators, and what has been the vision mission of the organization, what has been their journey. That becomes important if you really want to fund innovation at the grassroots, and if you're talking of the social sector getting transformed rather than just a few individuals or organizations getting transformed. Yeah.
Thank you. I think you've heard the panelists, and there's a rich repository of experience in the room, and I would request all of you to kindly help us over the next 5-7 minutes. What could be a possible agenda for Rubik in the immediate term the medium term and the long term. And when I say immediate term, maybe the current financial, the next financial year that is going to start from 1st of April. What do we do in the next in 12 months? I would request volunteers or anybody who's got ideas over the next 5 minutes, and then we'll come back to the panelists with their final words. Over the next 5 minutes. We have Albert from WICO. Yes, Albert, can we have to speak on something on behalf of the international community participation?
Yes, so thank you to the organizers for inviting me to speak here, just to give my comments in support of this new initiative from the international community's perspective. I don't need to tell you that the importance of startups is paramount. You all know that. One of the reasons why is particularly because of what startups can do for local governments. Not only are they agile, they're also accessible in terms of the cost of their solutions. Local governments are looking for low-cost solutions that can be customized. And in WIGO's network, in case you haven't been to sessions 1 or 4 where I already spoke and introduced my organization, we are a platform that has local governments, but also corporations. And in our network of local governments, the majority are actually from the Global South. They don't have funding, but they have needs. And we help analyze those needs, and we transfer this to the solution providers, and we find the right solution providers to matchmake with these local governments. And these local governments are very much in need of these types of solutions that can be provided by startups. One of the ways in which we do this is through a program that we work with the UN on called Citypreneurs, and this is actually a startup accelerator. WIGO itself, along with our partners, gives cash prizes to winners with very innovative solutions to certain problems for the public administration of Seoul. And this actually can be exported to many cities around the world. So not just for Seoul, but any city that has urban challenges that can be solved by innovative young entrepreneurs, they can take advantage of this type of thing. And we also offer opportunities through speakerships. We give the opportunity for startups to present their solutions at key events around the world. So we help them with exhibition spaces and also with even matchmaking directly with mayors and ICT divisions in local governments where they can be where they can have a dialogue to how they can serve that local government through their solution. Particularly in India, as I was talking to some colleagues here, I understood that India would want to be a knowledge hub for other parts of the world. And there's endless possibility here because of how many young people you have. But I think that besides just the knowledge, you can also be a hub for solutions. So WIGO can support with this. We are very much excited to see what Rubik comes up with over the coming months. We will be with you every step of the way. And we have a large network in Africa, but also a network in Latin America. These are some key, I think, markets for startups in India. So we will also be meeting with the AILSG very soon over lunch, which I don't want to keep you from, to talk about our partnership, and Rubik will certainly be one of those. So to answer your question very quickly, just about what we do in the next 5 to 7 months or so, partnerships with organizations like WIGO, and we're very happy to do so. Thank you very much.
Somebody from the floor, I have 3 minutes. Anybody? Yeah?
I have 2 things to ask. So one is when we interact a lot with incubators, they say that the government in a sense is like a fortress, and accessing data and actually getting to understand problems is a challenge. So how is this being thought of? Because we want new ideas, but if they really don't know what the problems are, then how is this bridge? How are you closing this? And the second thing is, in one of the I was mentioning to Mr. Raj that I went to Israel to look at the innovation space there. The first thing that the university, when you enter any of these innovation centers, the first thing that is put up everywhere is it's okay to fail. And therefore comes the point which you put of really changing of mindsets. So are we really even working on, inculcating this in our mind? Because as Indians, we are told that it's not okay to fail. We have to succeed every time. And every successful venture in Israel actually has failed thrice to actually succeed the fourth time. So I think, how are we really working on the space of changing mindsets to even get to the point where we are going to become successful in innovation? Thank you. These were
the new mantra is smart is beautiful. But let's not forget that small also is beautiful. And keeping of smallness, I think where we are located, the small state of Goa, somewhere down the line, I think the economies of scale also should matter here. So I would very much look forward to solutions which perhaps deal with specificities of size. So what may be applicable for a big city like Delhi or Ahmedabad may not be for a city like Panjim. So in that sense, somewhere in this smart model, the size also should matter. So that's what my input.
I think, thank you Rahul, I think size matter. If something has been done in a smaller city or a district town, would it make sense in a setup like Delhi or a metropolitan, or in Hyderabad, Secunderabad, these twin cities? My request to all the esteemed panelists, 1 minute each, and please go ahead and tell us the homework that we will need to get.
And of course, Mr. Tripathi, since you're nodding, I come to you. But you missed the point which you're talking about was made by one of the panelists to be inclusive while you were not there, so we are very much aware of it. I'll take up the issue about the government not putting across their concerns and their problems. So, we had a Lieutenant General visiting us, and he is very clearly told that all the requirements for innovations in which areas the defense forces want are put up very much on their websites. So, whenever there are calls for people to apply for grants, it's always by the area in which they are seeking the innovation. So, I would like to use my time to say something which we started with, that what should Rubik focus on? Obviously, you will be focusing on hiring manpower, and herein is my big word of advice at this juncture, that please be very careful. How successful you are is going to depend a lot on who is going to lead and manage your initiative. It completely is person driven. Whatever systems are there, they have to be evolved. So there's nothing defined. It's going to be led by somebody and some people, and that will determine and define your success. I would like to talk about the fail part with you later, maybe because I might not have time.
Yes.
What I would like to say is that I agree totally to what she has said. Who leads this would be very important, and an understanding as to what can it be. It cannot be a one-stop approach for developing incubators all across the country. So can we look at tier 2, tier 3 cities? What are the challenges? Understanding the ecosystem. That's extremely important. And I would again like to reinforce what I had mentioned earlier, that there's a different approach. A funnel is required, some handholding is required. So that has to be inbuilt somewhere as to how do we actually get to the right people who otherwise would never come up.
Yeah, very quick, which I made in the beginning, probably I'll come back to that. It's important to identify areas, identify incubators, and do it in a very transparent way. Normally what happens that those who are well connected or have access to high level, they come with their technology specific, maybe typical solutions, and then we have a beautiful concept of what we call Swiss challenge, which they say, okay, follow Swiss challenge because here is the technology, here is the answer, which may not be the right way. So I think equity or inclusiveness is very important, and in that context, I think your Rubik will have to play a very important role. Bring in transparency, visit all the policy programs and identify specifically what innovations are required. Do it on your own and through policy advocacy, take it to government. But then one important thing is that we have to have kind of government in the network. Otherwise what Saili said is an issue, no doubt. The information doesn't come, the data doesn't come out.
People response was amazing. Everybody come and they talk about their failure, and there's no ashamed. Nobody was ashamed about sharing the failures. So that is one thing which is slightly being taken care of by few of the people who travel. Now coming back to the point of Rubik, so what I would really like to see is having some performance matrices defined for Rubik is very important, because that brings in a lot of transparency and accountability. And the penetration, of course, you need to you cannot just focus on as I said, the tier 1 cities. The penetration should be deep enough that you should reach out to the tier 3 and tier 4 cities of India. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikhil, for the last word. You will have the last word, but so to talk of failures, I actually have a program under my center called the TISASD Intern Around, which is basically an internship program. And the qualification of the parameters for becoming an intern with me is actually the people who get the lowest marks. So the highest ones, I invert it, okay? So currently I'm supporting a young boy who comes from Jaunpur, used to actually sell, bottles of water on the thela. And, I invested in him. So I think it's also important for leadership or, people, even impact investor, whoever is investing, the vision becomes very important because we want change very early, and I think that is what is problematic. You have to allow a flower to bloom. It cannot happen overnight, right? Just how do I see Rubik going ahead? Because like I said, I believe in disruptions. We're talking of disruptions. I'll actually turn it around, CIBUR, and I'll talk about what each I think can be a strategy. So when we talk of C, I think Rubik can actually be a center that talks of, conscious and compassionate capitalism. Capitalism is here to stay. CSR is also here to stay. So, how can we basically bring in, compassion, empathy? How can we support projects that are talking of this? I hope Rubik can be a center which is an independent think tank, okay, where you actually have a representation from civil society, from bureaucrats, technical experts. So that could be the independence part of it. B is, if we can have a bank, which again at TIS we have, so we can actually value add to that, creating a bank of proposals, creating a bank of ideas which have actually gone through the due diligence process. I talk of unreached. Like I said, social enterprises are really offer a lot of hope. Because typical corporations don't allow women to lead. But there is a recent study that shows how in South Asia, especially Pakistan and India, increasing number of leaders of social startups are women. So it actually also is talking of a new kind of business which allows more of entry of women. And last is R. I talk of basically rural job creation. I think instead of regional, one of the things that I would definitely suggest and taking from you is a focus on rural, because that is where India really exists. It's not in these urban areas. And to actually sign out, just last thing, I think development problems require development solutions. Technology will not always work. If you want to address development issues, you need to go to the field, understand the complexities, the dynamics, the caste, the gender, so many interactions. So technology cannot always be a solution. Technology will of course be an enabler. And I think this obsession with smart is a little problematic, because I actually got a smartphone fairly recently. But I think rather than supporting smart as responsible investors or whatever, I think we should actually support art that actually supports creativity. So if a proposal is very creative, so let's support art and move away from smart. Thank you very much.
I thank you. I would request my colleague, Mr. Pashim Tiwari, to give a brief presentation about the Rubik thing. Ashif, thank you.
And I had a lot of things from you, and I think there is a solution for each one of them. And I think inclusivity also means that you can have technology and art together. It doesn't need to be exclusive to each other. And I would just like to start with I have 5 minutes, and I'm going to give you the Rubik thing, and I think most of the people who are engaged in this are already here and they have presented. But I think the vision needs to be very clear, and that is what is there. It's regional and urban because of the fact that though India is at present in the rural areas, but it is changing very fast. Today it is 33% urban and 67% rural, but it is going to in 20 years become 67% urban and 33% rural. And that change is something which needs to be driven by incubation, actually speaking, because the major problems, as you know, are in urban areas. It is not in the rural areas that much. Things do, develop, and there are solutions which are local centric, which people do. It is just that we never recognize them. That is another problem, and we call them jugaad. The jugaad is actually where there are a lot of solutions which have been created, but they don't get recognition enough. So that's one point which I think one needs to understand. And we over here are actually looking for those, especially in the Gwalior Incubation Center, we're targeting areas which are not seen by other people so much. So, there can be solutions in handicraft, there can be solutions for people who are locally developing art products, and that is being actually targeted very consciously in these incubation centers. So, those concepts are already existing over here, and I think that is the reason why IIT and NEERI and other institutions have come on board and agreed to help us, because that is something which we are going to develop. I don't have a control of. Yeah, thanks. So we are doing business innovation. We are looking at. Sorry. Yeah. So university-based business incubators. We are looking at independent and private incubators, and as well as a corporate and private. So we are being very inclusive in the whole approach. We are not targeting and saying that things which are going to earn me a lot of money are the ones which are my, I don't want to make unicorns only. I want to make locally, people who can give very specific solutions to very local problems. So that's a part of this particular, center's initiative. It's not working. Yeah. So go ahead. I think we know that. So the idea, how do we do it is the major challenge. What we do, we know. I think everyone has defined it. This is what we need to do. We need to bring all these people together. We need to be specific to a particular location. But how do we do it? And that's where we are finding it challenging. And ALSG, what it is trying to do is that we have a network with municipal corporations across India. We have presence in almost every major city. We have in every state a particular, our own office and a center, and that is from where we are building a larger network. So we are hoping to do about 100 incubation centers across India in every state, which are localized in second and third tier cities, which can then become a network of these centers and innovation breeders, rather than thinking that one place, one area would do it all. And we have realized that, there is a lot of innovation available at the local grassroots level, which never gets tapped. And this we have learned because we train approximately 18,000 skilled, skilling graduates or, diploma holders and other people across India every year. Next. You have seen these institutions. Thank you. Next. So, yeah, next. I think every institution has already said their piece. Potential areas of cooperation is something which we are basically looking at. So, we are looking at reforms and policies also. That what is it that is required, and we have even engaged with Niti Aayog, where they are running, smart incubation centers and various things. That what is the thing which is required to be changed over there? That is our starting point. We are looking at poverty elevation side of it, sustainable development side of it, financing of urban infrastructure side of it, urban planning and management, and rural development. All of these sectors we are looking at to develop also. Not just that you are making one product. It is not about just making a product, right? So secondly, in urban sector, these issues are the major issues, and we are looking at whether we can find solutions for these issues, which is energy efficiency and renewable. We are already working in about 15 states with state governments in this. Solid waste management is a major issue, and that we are looking at even to the ward level. We are now having a ward level indexing done with the help of Niti Aayog. In New Delhi is the pilot state which is doing that. Climate change adoption, public health and sanitation. Gender equality is one of the major things which we are looking at, and we are trying to see if we can have even in incubation, because what is happening in an urban solution, the gender piece is missing completely. You have no spaces in planning for women and child and other marginalized groups, and we are looking at how we can find solutions for that. Disaster management, heritage, rural entrepreneurship is again something which we are really targeting. We have already done 2 rural dialogues actually in Guwahati and another place, where we talked about people who are doing very specific. So I'll give you one example. You buy milk, but there is a what is called a A grade or A2 quality milk. Now that is not available everywhere, but yeah.
It's called A2 type
Yes, so but that is not available. So there are local, and because it has very low shelf life, and there is an incubator or an incubatee who has developed a mechanism. Actually, she has developed a mechanism which you can bring that milk to the cities in refrigerated systems across this thing, which lasts more, and you can get a better amount of money. So these kind of things also we are looking at, and sustainable livelihood, knowledge creation and dissemination. So I think I've already taken up enough time, and all of these things are something which we are looking at, and we hope that we are going to find solutions to each one of the panelists, what they have asked us to do, and we'll conclude it.
Thank you, Pasha. I think, just as a concluding 30 seconds, I would like to thank each one of you for your focused, pointed observations, suggestions on our way forward, and we look forward to an enduring partnership from one and all from here. There is some homework for the team at AILSG along with the partner institutions to work, and there are some things that are for the management to take care of. I think I would like to convey my sincere thanks on behalf of AILSG and all the organizers to each one of you, to the esteemed panelists to come all the way, and to the guests who gave us this time and encouragement. We look forward to a continued engagement. Thank you very much.
To giving memento to Mr. A.K. Jain.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.